Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill's been my dentist for the last 25 years. I could not be happier. You're going to be thrilled with the results of going to Today's Dentistry. Call them. Make the appointment right now, 317-849-2933. I had the privilege today of speaking to the Sertoma Club of Broad Ripple. They have a lunch every Wednesday, and they have a speaker come in. I was really happy to be the guy this week. This is the third time I've done it. I really enjoy it. The guys have great questions. They're terrific listeners, and they indulge as I talk about sports in Central Indiana. They listen to me, and they respond, and it's very, very nice, and I enjoy it a great deal. And I never know what I'm going to say in advance. I don't prepare for these things. I just get up and I think, okay, what do these people want to hear about? Obviously, they've invited me to talk about sports, so I'm going to do that, but I try to bring it to kind of a life thing. You know, people who are members of a Sertoma Club, that's service to man. They're interested in service to man. And so today I got up and I talked to them about where we are with the franchises in this area, whether it's Colts, Pacers, Indiana University, Purdue University, Butler University, the Indy 11, whatever. Those franchises, those programs that we pay rapt attention to, I think they're in great hands right now. And that's really unique. You look around the country in the NBA, and how many well-run franchises do you see? How many franchises do you see that celebrate the individual rather than the collective? And the answer is damn near all of them. Right? The Pacers, they are the one group in the NBA right now that really plays for one another, and they do it at a high level, and the aggregate is greater than the sum of the parts. And you're going to see that tonight when the Pacers play at Oklahoma City. You're going to see a Pacers team that doesn't care who scores the points. They want to defend as a team. They want to score as a team, and it's beautiful to watch. Last night, Indiana basketball, you saw a team that offensively, that train was driven by Devontae Green. There's no doubt about that. He was 10 of 15 from the field, 5 of 7 from beyond the arc. He was absolutely superb offensively. But the thing that I thought won the game for Indiana was the defense, and that doesn't show up in the box score. You've got a guy like Demezy Anderson, who for a long time has looked kind of lost defensively. Last night, he worked his ass off defensively. Armand Franklin, a freshman, he was terrific last night on the defensive end. Indiana played really good, connected defense throughout that game to hold Florida State to 64 points. Florida State, they missed some bunnies too. Let's not discount that. But that defense was a collective. When you watch Purdue tonight take on Virginia, and when you watch Virginia tonight take on Purdue up at Mackey Arena, right? Both those teams do it the right way. They are a we first team, not a me first team. You look at the Colts and you walk around that locker room. I talk to all these people, right? I'm in the locker room all the time. And so what I wanted to tell the guys at the Sertoma Club was that their faith that these institutions, these sports institutions that they care about, these things are being run by people who understand that the collective is the important portion. It's not about going out and getting stars, for God's sake. It's not about filling seats. It's about playing winning basketball. It's about playing winning football. The winning drives the attendance in Central Indiana. We demand that of our sports programs, our sports franchises. We want that. Butler, the underpinnings, the foundation of Butler basketball it's a we deal. We are a team. We need to play the Butler way, not the Kamar Baldwin way, not the Aaron Thompson way, right? Not the, at IU, it's not the Justin Smith way. It's not the Devontae Green way. You have got to play for each other. You have to play in service of your teammates and your coach and your university or your franchise. And if you do that, you've got a chance to do something special. Now, that doesn't guarantee you're going to win a championship, but what it does guarantee is that you're going to be as good as you can be, and that you are never going to look back at your experience in being an athlete or being a fan of athletes and regret your decision, regret your investment in that team or your teammates. And that's critically important, I think, especially in Central Indiana. This is a we-first community. We're not all about me. When people come from outside, and this is why Indianapolis was such a terrific Super Bowl host city, and why it'll be a terrific host city for the NBA All-Star Game and the Big Ten men's basketball tournament coming up this year, the NCAA Final Four every 5 years. The next one's coming up very, very shortly, because we care. We give a damn. When I worked in St. Louis at 101 ESPN, we brought the whole staff to the Super Bowl. Did it prior to my getting there, and then when the Super Bowl was here in Indianapolis, we brought everybody over. And what they all said to me, and then what they all said on the radio, was, my God, these people are nice. Like, you walk around and these volunteers, they're ready to help at every turn. That's Central Indiana. That's Indianapolis. We need that. We don't need guys playing shoot 'em up downtown. The professional athletes who are making millions of dollars a year, treating our city as though it's their own private playground where no rules apply. We don't vibe real well with that. In some places, that is just fine. Not in Central Indiana, not in Indianapolis. We want people, we love Quentin Nelson. You know why we love Quentin Nelson? It's not because he's the best blocking left guard in the NFL. It's not that. It's because every single play, if it's Marlon Mack or Jordan Wilkins or Nyheim Hines or whoever it is, they get knocked on their ass after they carry the football. Quentin Nelson is right there to give them a hand up as soon as they get knocked down. I don't know how the hell he gets there that quick. People in Central Indiana love that. They love guys who are more concerned with assists and helping others score than scoring themselves. Paul George is a wonderful example of a guy who came to Indianapolis with the Pacers and played as a team-first guy for a period of time. And then, all of a sudden, Paul decided that he needed to be a brand. And he spoke of himself in the third person. And he called himself PG-13. And there was all the dapping with the guys after games, but only the All-Stars, only the NBA elite got an audience with Paul George. That drives people here crazy, and it drove them away from Paul George. It was a hand to their face. It was like, I don't care about you, I care about me. That doesn't work here. So Paul George, he went to Oklahoma City. We got Victor Oladipo and Domas Sabonis back to Indianapolis, and everybody is thrilled with the result of that trade, no matter what Paul George does. If Paul George wins an NBA championship with the Clippers, nobody in Indianapolis is going to pine for the days when Paul George was here playing for the Pacers or wish that he was still. That's just not how we're wired. That's not how Indianapolis works. Indianapolis embraces the Pacers because they embrace each other. They embrace Butler basketball because they embrace each other. They embrace Indiana basketball or not, depending on what they look like during that specific iteration. You knew that for a while, didn't you? That Indiana, under Tom Crean, you had guys at Indiana University who were only there as a stepstone to the NBA. Noah Vonleh, Thomas Bryant, these guys, they came to Indiana because they thought it was going to be a shortcut to the NBA. We don't like that. We like guys who enjoy Bloomington. I spent 6 years in Bloomington. I loved my time at Bloomington. I made lifelong friends at Bloomington. I understand the good. I met my wife at Bloomington, for God's sake. I understand what makes that place special, and it's not playing basketball as a stair step to the NBA. That's not what it is. If we can't empathize with it, if we can't understand it, then we reject it. And so Tom Crean's Indiana University basketball program, we just kind of didn't like because Indiana was a source of potential wealth for people, right? It was that stepstone to something greater. And I know that we all tend to look at college like that. We're going to get out of college. We're going to make millions of dollars. Blah, 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 blah. But when we get to college, and especially after we graduate from college, what we learn is that the special part of it, the marrow of college, is in the people you meet and the relationships that you build. That is the critical aspect of it. And so one thing I didn't mention to the Sertoma guys, and again, they were so nice. Like 120 guys, we all ate fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, had a roll, had some chocolate cake, absolutely wonderful. And the guys, so talking to these guys was, like I said, it was a privilege. And the thing that I neglected to mention is probably the biggest example of what I'm talking about. And I was reminded of it when I got into the car and Dan Dockich was interviewing Peyton Ramsey, the quarterback for Indiana. And Dan did a wonderful job on 1070 The Fan, talking to Peyton about the challenge of being replaced as a starter by Michael Penix when the season started. And Peyton Ramsey said it was a gut punch, and Dan asked all the right questions in a very empathetic way. So it wasn't offensive to Peyton, but it allowed him to kind of explain why it wasn't the right time for him to transfer, what it felt like when he was told that Michael Penix was going to be the starting quarterback, and what his behavior was as a result of facing that adversity. And as we look at the 8-4 Hoosiers, who are going to go to a bowl for an opportunity to win their 9th game for only the 3rd time in that program's history. They won 9 games in 1945 and in 1967. They can do it again this year if they win their bowl. And a lot of it is going to have to do with Peyton Ramsey. Because what Peyton Ramsey did was take that adversity, not turn it inward, but decided that he needed to reflect the happiest version of himself and the most diligent version of himself with his teammates and his coaches. Not be a disruption, show up, work like hell, and have that define who you are. Rather than what you do on Saturdays, you're going to prove it to guys Sunday through Friday. That's what Peyton Ramsey did. And then Michael Penix gets hurt. And so what was Peyton Ramsey in a position to do? If he had been very myopic, if he had been very self-indulgent, and he got that opportunity, he would have been woefully unprepared for it. But what Peyton Ramsey got a chance to do, because he is who he is put up the best numbers of his career. In his first year, he had a completion percentage of 65.4. Last year, it was 66.0. This year, 69.2. Yards per attempt, up 2 yards from 6.4 to 8.4 this year. TDs, 13. Interceptions, 4. Last year, he threw 13 interceptions. This year, he's thrown 4. And it's he would probably be, if you factored it up to the level of attempts that he made last year when he was a starting quarterback, you'd probably have 7. So he's really cut his interception rate in half. His rating as a quarterback is 152.6 this year over last year's rating of 128.2. And that's because Peyton Ramsey was not selfish. He was selfless. He did what he did for his team and his coaches and his family and his university. And each of those, the teammates, the student body, the university, and his family all supported him emotionally along the way. What a great lesson. Not only a great lesson for Peyton Ramsey, but a great lesson that we can extrapolate from Peyton Ramsey's experience this year. And if you're a parent, there is nobody better to point at than Peyton Ramsey and say, look at what this kid did. This kid was told that he was going to be on the bench as a guy who is a returning starter. And what did he do? He nutted up and he fought like hell and he did what was necessary and he did what was in the best interest of his team. He put team first. He served his teammates before serving himself. And as a result, he gets the glory of being the starting quarterback for a team that is in the game to win its 9th game for the 3rd time in program history and go to a really meaningful bowl. They're talking about not the Farmer Fran Bowl out in Santa Clara. They're talking about maybe the Gator Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, something like that. Something that bowls that people have heard of, one-word bowls, where you don't put the sponsor name in front. Bowls that we grew up watching, not the New Era Pinstripe Bowl of, blah, 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 blah. It's not that. These are real bowls, and they're not there. If Peyton Ramsey 3 months ago decides that he's more important than his team, and we dig that. That's what this area is. That's what makes it special. And when people talk about Indianapolis as being, well, it's just another Midwestern town, kind of one of those backwater cities that, a bunch of hayseeds live in, you know what? Fine. Go ahead and you believe that. Go ahead and live up in Chicago and look down your nose at Indianapolis. But I'll tell you what you will find. You will find the same thing that I found when I moved here from Indianapolis or from Chicago. I found that Indianapolis is a great place to live in ways that Chicago can't even dream of being. And not just in the obvious ways, not in the pragmatic ways. Traffic, of course, Indianapolis is far superior to Chicago. What people in Chicago will say is, well, nobody lives there. Well, you know what else happens in Indianapolis? Is they manage the infrastructure on an ongoing level because they're not rife with scandal and with theft within their state and city governments. That is a difference between these two places. People here, I'll tell you the truth. When I lived in Chicago, one day I got fed up with it. I used to go to fast food places all the time. And when you went to fast food places in Chicago, you got to the front of the line, and people would either say nothing. The cashier would say nothing and just keep a head down on the keyboard as you ordered, or they'd say, what you want. And I got tired of it. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to drive around until somebody says, welcome to wherever. May I take your order, please? I'm going to waste at least a tank of gas. And I had no idea it was going to take this long. It took me 5 hours to get to a place finally on the north side of Chicago where somebody greeted me and asked me for my order. Hi, may I take your order? I think that's what I got. Hi, may I take your order? Yes, absolutely. I think it was a Wendy's. I said, I'll take a double with cheese and pickle, onion, ketchup, mustard. How about that? Okay. That's what I got. And at every other place, I was treated not even like a human being. And that's what happens in Chicago. In Indianapolis, everybody is treated as a human being. And we demand of the people who come into our midst, into our environment, that they do the same. And the teams here in central Indiana, the Colts and the Pacers, they understand that if they build their team with a bunch of selfish guys, you know what? People aren't going to show up at Lucas Oil Stadium or at Bankers Life Fieldhouse because we'll feel no connection to those people. And that's what's important here. It's important to feel a connection. And if you feel a connection, you're going to invest and you're going to feel good about that investment. And if you're not connected, you're not going to invest. That's the way it works. That's why 300,000 people show up at 16th and Georgetown every single year for the Indianapolis 500, because we're connected to that facility, to the people who have run it, to the people who will run it. We understand that place, and they understand us. And so whether you're talking to Mark Miles or Doug Bowles or any of the great people who work there, you understand that they understand you, and that you and they are the same. Whether it's a Holman George family, now Roger Penske is going to come in. Roger Penske understands that place. He's been coming here since he was 14 years old. That's the way Indianapolis works. It's like the opposite of Chicago. In Chicago, if you want to slip in Belmont Harbor, you walk into the alderman's office with like $1,500 in cash and you get your slip. Here, you shake a hand, you have a conversation, you mention that you want something, and they see if they can provide it for you, not because they owe you, not because they paid you, but because that's who they are, and they know that they serve you. That is Central Indiana. That is the Sertoma Club of Broad Ripple. That is the Indiana Pacers. That's the Indianapolis Colts. That's Purdue. That's Butler. That's Indiana University. And when people get twisted about what they are and their place in the community, people here remind them quickly and severely with their wallets. And so people know not to do that. Plus, they're Indiana guys. Kevin Pritchard is an Indiana guy. Rick Fusen, Indiana guy. Jim Irsay, now Indiana guy. Pete Ward, now Indiana guy. Chris Ballard, becoming an Indiana guy. You know what? I know he's from Texas. I know he went to Wisconsin, but he fits the mold of an Indiana guy, and that's about as high a piece of praise as I can give him. Had a great time with those people, and I'm telling you, if you're a parent, talking to your kid about what Peyton Ramsey went through, and I'm sure there's a podcast available at 1070thefan.com or 1075thefan.com or whatever the hell it is, with Dan talking to Peyton Ramsey. I'm sure Dan on his Twitter feed is going to retweet the link. Please listen, and please have your kid listen to Peyton Ramsey talk about selflessness while not really talking about selflessness, but the story that he tells represents selflessness at a really high level. Do that, and you won't be sorry. And you know what? The people, if you meet somebody, the Sertoma Club of Broad Ripple, these are wonderful people. I swear to God, really, really good guys. I enjoy it there. Great fried chicken, man. Every single time I go there, they're wonderful people. That's Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling. Want to remind you that Breakfast with Kent tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock on the dot on Facebook Live, and then on Periscope Live at about 8:15, we do it a second time. It's a show so nice we do it twice, 2 different versions. Sometimes I talk about 2 different things. I don't know. When I was at the Sertoma Club, a guy came up and he said, "How do you do that? You didn't have notes." I said, "No, tell you the truth, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about before I show up." But he goes, "Well, you move so seamlessly from topic to topic." And I said, "Well, I did a radio show for 5 years. That helps. I do 2-3 podcasts every day. That helps as well. But you know what? If you know what you believe, and you can find within sports examples of what you believe, it's really not too difficult at all." So that's what we do every morning. Breakfast with Kent, again, Facebook Live, 8 o'clock, and Periscope Live, which is accessible on my Twitter feed at Kent Sterling. That's at about 8:15. We'll talk to you tomorrow. All brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Give Dr. Mike O'Neill a call, 317-849-2933. Talk to you tomorrow. Join me.